There's a place right up the train line here in Dallas that is identified not only by signage on the exterior of the actual location, but also by the city of Dallas as being a place where one can take household chemicals for safe disposal. In order to do this, however, one has to have a utility bill identifying themselves as located within the specific areas where it accepts a household chemical for disposal. Now, in the time I've been at the address I've been at, I do not have a utility bill. I was informed that at a certain point in time, I was informed that the utility bills and the bills related to the actual location we are at here were connected to a situation where somebody else had that information. Over 3 months ago now, I directly spoke in person with that specific person, and there was another person as a witness. That person may have been doing something on the phone for part of that time. We were right here outside. They had their own vehicle that was in their name. It's not a rental vehicle. It's actually owned or at least leased by those particular individuals that have a fiduciary responsibility related to this location. I said to them directly and in person what I had. I said that in order for me to be able to deal with it appropriately, one of them, because of the relationship they had and the documentation they had, would have to allow for and provide transportation along with the documentation of ownership of this place to that facility in order to safely dispose of them. Now, I have remarked on a number of times how there have been what appear to be simulations connected to chemical safety throughout Dallas. And not only that, but here on site, there are a number of chemicals that are not used, including that were here when I moved in, and it, including ended up being just seen around the place in places they shouldn't be. That you can't just pick it up and throw it in the garbage can. I've kept an inventory of every single one, the time, the date, and the circumstances. In at least one case, I know that there is specifically video feed of me in downtown Dallas identifying the chemical hazard and the circumstances, and I wrote a note and I held it up to the camera at the actual DART station where they did it. I got the information I needed to, I wrote it down, it's on a report in here. At least one of these chemical hazards is directly connected to a series of text messages somebody sent me that had a very important correlation with international events involving exposure to chemical weapons. To this time, I have not been provided with any assistance in safely and legally disposing of chemicals that could potentially be component items in the development of a chemical weapon and or used for some other nefarious purpose. There has been more than enough time. I have brought this up more than once. My understanding is that when you would go and dispose of those, you would get a receipt. And then there would be a database that the city had where you going and having those chemicals turned in would be identified as having been received by the city. I have had to live with them specifically cordoned off in a very specific area that I inventoried myself here on site because the means by which to engage in a safe disposal of them have been refused me over and over again. Now, if somebody thought that they were entitled to try to intimidate me with some allegation that I was in the course of being subjected to an eviction proceeding, you know what that means? They would be evicting me while they refused to provide a means by which to safely and legally dispose of chemicals, including chemicals that could be used in the development of chemical weapons. Period. Every single chance I have tried to avail myself of in an effort to get a job to provide for myself has been intentionally sabotaged with a simulation of unsafe handling of industrial chemicals, including industrial chemicals that can be used in, right? I have the inventories right here. I've only logged them in as evidence. I've had them specifically sealed off insofar as I can in a way that I understand would not, for instance, allow for some sort of combustion that may prevent a hazard. And at the same time, I've been refused anybody else to talk to this entire time. Were you intending to try to simulate that you were going to evict me so that then you can come in and acquire a stockpile of chemical weapons? Because right now that's my charge. And insofar as I understand that one of the alleged trustees is somebody who draws a pension connected with experience as a former teacher here in the state of Texas, these are very, very serious charges. I want her removed from the trust. If there is actually a legitimate trust that is in the nature of a matter to provide for the assistance needed by a senior who's actually a family member of the original trustee, it is 100% being abused by the person alleging, or at least alleged to be the trustee. There was absolutely nothing legitimate about intentionally and willfully refusing to provide assistance in disposing of hazardous materials that were being kept on site at a real property that was specifically inventoried as part of a trust over which you were the trustee. There was none. The means were there. Everything that was necessary to do it legally was already available. It was just willfully and intentionally refused until this day. It's unacceptable. I don't want to hear any more about this. This is completely contemptible. You've done this to my life. You've done this to my life, so this is the level you're going to have to deal with it at. You attempted to frame me and extort me into agreeing to cooperate with the manufacture of chemical weapons. I said no. If there was any other intent in this, then you would already have provided me with somebody I could speak to officially and in person that would have provided a legal means by which to take them to the facility I already know they can be taken to in order to be disposed of safely. And you would have provided a response to any of the OSHA reports I have filed. You would have provided a response to any of the efforts I have made to contact the legal representative of actual places I was attempting to work at that were attempting to frame me into agreeing to engage in an unsafe event regarding chemical safety. But you have not to this day. Make no pretense about it. I understand now the full profundity of what we're dealing with.